Good to see you.
Great to see you again. And is Doug Cutting coming on?
I think he's having a quick bite and he's going to join us in a little bit.
Okay, great. Okay, so last year you were at Bank of America, and they're still, although still on the video, but now Treseda, which you announced on theCUBE at Strata in February.
That's right.
And we've talked many times. Great guest. You coined the term data factory. Still popular video from last year.
Thank you.
What's different in a year? Obviously, you have a company.
I know.
Okay, you're on your own and you're kicking butt. So tell us what's happened in this past year for you personally with the company and also the business. What have you seen change?
Absolutely.
It's been a big sea change.
I think, first of all, it's always good to see you guys. You guys make big data look really good, and we appreciate it. So I think a lot has changed, and you've been following it as closely as I have, right? So it's been 12 months, yet another bumper conference, right? Cloudera's put another good show up. The Cube is bigger. Treseda is bigger. So I think we are seeing the word data factory or data pipeline emerge a lot. In fact, it's funny, the number of startups are trolling this Hadoop world, and how many people are using the term for all sorts of industries and all sorts of problems, be it the web, be it healthcare, be it mobile. I heard Nokia was here.
Yeah, amazing.
So I think that's different. I think the word has got. I think the idea, the concept of taking big data and automating the pipeline has become real because you're seeing real live applications of it. I think Hadoop is bigger, right? Big data is bigger. Last year, there was one company that we all knew of that remained the leaders of it, and now we have Hortonworks. So I think you certainly see a lot more action in the distribution layer. I think the third thing that's really changed and is bigger is you've seen the creation of companies like ours, right? Where Peter Fenton said the best thing. We believe Hadoop is ready for the enterprise. It really is ready for the enterprise, outside the web. And what it's been waiting for is an application to pull through the stack. Because the basic components work. You can store the data, you can process the data, you can access the data, you can run analytics. And what needs to be built next is got to be driven by the enterprise, who is using it for use cases. So I think as applications like ours come up, we will see Hadoop become a lot stronger and a lot bigger.
So I'd like to ask you on a more personal note, last year you made a personal journey transition from big company where you were playing with a lot of big data, Bank of America, you went out on your own to start Treseda. Share with folks, because there are entrepreneurs coming into the marketplace. You were one of the early pioneers jumping in and you saw it. You didn't need any more evidence, you just jumped right in. Talk to the folks out there about the transition. It's real. You can build a company. There's funding available. There's solutions to be solved, to be had, and problems to be solved. So share with the other entrepreneurs out there.
Absolutely. I think, and I said this I've said this to you, not last year, but in our multiple conversations. We are witnessing a massive revolution around data. And I think there are enough problems to solve. I do believe that the distribution layer of Hadoop has activity and doesn't need any more. So what we really need to build are the applications, right? The MS Offices on top of the Windows, right? The next generation. But the next generation databases, the next generation analytical factories that can solve real problems. And the industries are there for the taking. I think Treseda is going to maintain a leadership in financial services that we'll keep building on, and we'll share some interesting stories with you. But I think healthcare is out for the taking. And I think to your point, the ideas exist, the business problems exist. They are big ones. The concept has transitioned from the web to the enterprise. And if you have an idea, the tools are there. And the best part of it, unlike 20 years ago, when you were starting a company around data, you had to pay a toll to the back end. There is no toll. Innovation is free. Innovation is liberating. And this is a massive opportunity for fellow entrepreneurs.
It's so exciting. The open source growth is, and what we clarified yesterday was there is no war in the Apache community. Okay, There's been some press trying to throw some grenades around, and we're joined with Doug Cutting, the founder of Hadoop. Speaking of open source,
Good to see you. Hey, Doug.
Hey,
how's it going?
so you got you have a handler now.
Hey, oh yeah.
Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
you made it.
Uh-oh. He's got a handler. Is that what defines it?
Uh-oh. He's got a handler.
It's perfect.
Doug, welcome back to theCUBE.
Thank you
Great
very
to
much.
see you.
Great to be
Congratulations. A great year. You're working on a great project. We'll jump into it, but just want to ask you, because what's changed in a year? Just tell us your perspectives for the industry, open source, and you personally.
I mean, I think it's mostly just the momentum has increased even more, and it's just the size of this conference demonstrates that. The excitement that everybody's having, the fact that we're seeing big players like Oracle and Microsoft and IBM all getting involved in this really establishes us as the big data platform. And it really is. We're sort of predicting that before. But I think when you've got the major players of the industry all signing onto it too, endorsing it, it's really here. Still young, still got a ways to go. But it's really exciting.
We were predicting last year. In fact, we coined the term "big data revolution," and we're like, "Oh yeah, that's kind of It's now officially happening.
It absolutely is. And big and small companies, man. You are bigger than me, but I think people like us are leading the light.
Oh yeah. No, I mean it's across the board, and I mean I think a lot of times it's easier for big companies to get started with,
right?
Because they tend to have the bigger problems that really force it, where there's no other way to do it. And the budgets to experiment.
Absolutely.
And so they can go out and try it first and make it easier for those who come next.
I mean, you guys both sort of predicted growth, maybe not to this extent, but Doug, obviously you kind of gave up your life for this, and Avi, you gave up your nice cushy job. Right? What surprised you though? What shockers?
I think the biggest surprise for me has been the tremendous amount of global interest. We recently did a webinar called Hadoop and the Big Data Opportunity in Banking. We had people sign in from France, Germany, Holland, Australia, India, China, Africa, Latin America. So I think we have a new prediction, right? We have a prediction that in 5 years from now, every single bank in the world will have Hadoop. And I think it's not bold anymore. It's actually, I'm setting my sights low.
It's a mandate. It's not a prediction, it's mandate.
Exactly. So I think you see, what surprised us is the Hadoop people. I was meeting with the head of McKinsey's financial practice today, right before I came here. And it's the guy who 12 months ago did not know what Hadoop was, except the fact it had an elephant reference. And he sits down with us today morning and he says, I get it. And we say, what do you mean? He goes, the reality is, 20 years ago, the relational databases couldn't do certain things. And you're telling me that I can walk up to the CEO of a bank and say, forget all those assumptions. You actually can look at all of your data. You can look at the individual level, and you can solve problems you can't solve before. And he goes, I get it. It's absolutely, completely a revolution.
It's completely compelling, and what's driving it is the open source. Doug, while you're here, I wanted to ask you, because we clarified yesterday that although there was press mentions and trying to gin up a war, Apache's getting forked, that the forking conversation was being discussed in the press. And it's clear to us that the open source community around Apache right now is solid. There is there is total peace and love in the community right now. I mean, do you agree with that statement? And what's your opinion?
There's certainly productive collaboration. Whether everyone loves one another or not is a separate question. I'm not going to venture. But they don't have to. We've got a system where they're collaborating productively together, and so
they're recognizing each other as competitors on a commercial basis. Okay, and that people are going to have different strategies, but in the production system of code development, there is no real issues at this point. People recognize that rising tide floats all boat, and why fight internally amongst each other? And
that's the point of open source, is to collaborate with competitors, is to provide a neutral ground to identify technologies which are in everybody's interests and share them. And that's the purpose of the Apache Software Foundation, is to support projects that are done collaboratively. And so and that's exactly what we're seeing happening. We're getting a real diverse group of people.
It's funny you talk about the revolution and the bank and the mandate and the guy who gets it. I think we're going to look back in history at the open source revolution that started in my early generations in computer science, when Unix came out and that whole kind of stack, as a historic moment that, look at, this is how people produce code. And you commented on theCUBE at Cloudera that you built a company and went out of business and all the code disappeared. Right. This has a living organism, and people are involved, and this is the new production system. And I think that's, to me, the most historic thing that's going on here.
And I think it's spreading and evolving and developing much faster because it's open source. I think if somebody would have developed precisely the same Hadoop software as a proprietary product and tried to distribute it at the same time, we wouldn't be here. Yeah. We wouldn't see this groundswell. And it would be less commerce around Hadoop as well. That company would be smaller than or any other companies in the space.
To me, it's totally true tech heroes out there, and we heard from people who have unequivocally said, open source is the gift that keeps giving. I wouldn't have my career if it wasn't for open source. The Facebook guy said, you know what? Get involved in open source because not only is it good for your career, it's good for everybody, and it's the gift that keeps giving. So, these folks like yourself, Doug, will be, I think, heroes, and everyone's all the collection of heroes working together.
Superheroes, right?
Superheroes.
You'll be the heroes and Doug's the superheroes. But I think there's another part about open source which has been a pretty interesting change that we have seen, which is you also can now solve problems you couldn't solve before. So it's not just about the technology and how it's a living organism. The technology applied to real business problems, which is what we see in our industry, is extremely, extremely powerful. And you literally can solve, we are seeing use cases and business problems that our customers are saying, I could not have done this if it were not for the power. And seeing also the adoption of the trail you blazed in the web space and saying, I get it, it scales, it works, and it's massively powerful.
Well, let's talk about that because we had the big data guy on fun from XL Partners, Ping Lee, and Mike Olson were on, and obviously Cloudera just got $40 million in financing, all that validation. There's money coming in to commercialize these things. It used to be in the business the old way that the phrase, that's a feature, not a company. I'm not going to invest. And that, that's kind of the VC the venture capital world. We don't invest in features. But today, you can actually have a compelling feature that changes a business.
Absolutely.
And that goes viral and creates massive change you can build a company around. So
absolutely.
Do you agree with that statement? And can you show some examples of how one little good idea, it could be an analytic thing,
completely agree with it.
Change the world?
I completely agree with it. I think I'll use our example to say it as a living example of it. I think data at its widest self is not new. But the ability to process it, analyze it, get information from it at scale was an idea that could not be executed. So for us to start a company and build what we call the first data processing pipeline, analytical engine for financial services, to create a total view of customer, not a single view of customer, but a total view of customer that has the ability to look at structured data, unstructured data, social data. We see enough clients, it's a great example. Clients coming to us and saying, I got 100,000 people who like me on Facebook. What is a like worth? And you go, well, why is that question important, right? It's a fair question. And they say, well, I'm trying to decide, should I spend $10 million on advertising on Facebook or $50 million? And the question becomes important. So how do you try to answer the question, right? It's a great example. If I just looked at unstructured data, and I just looked at Facebook information because of the client has access to it, all right, I can see if the guy follows you, how many friends he's got, but it's difficult to answer. If I just look at structured data and see how many products they have, what products they spend money with you on, etc., it's still difficult to answer. Now here's the game changer. If I was to be able to bring structured data together with unstructured data, and now suddenly say, of the 100,000 people who like you on Facebook, X of them are customers, Y of them have every single banking relationship with you, and Z aren't even customers. So the Z are probably worth less. But let's look at X that have everything with you, and your mortgage, your credit card, etc. Is that guy worth more than the Y, who have only one product, got 5,000 followers, and is very influential? The answer is going to depend. So you may, financially, a customer may look very valuable on unstructured data, but you bring this influencer behavior in, and the answer changes. Yeah. And that's becoming extremely powerful.
That's valuable to people
that
was not able to be captured in real time.
Absolutely.
And that's the real time thing.
So Doug, fast forward 5 years. Put on your, get out your telescope. It's 5 years from now. I don't know where we're going to be. We'd probably be in Vegas, but
40,000.
We should be in Vegas. That's a good goal to have.
Attendees.
Okay, so let's do. How big is this event? What are we talking about at this event? What's the dynamic like?
I generally try to avoid predicting the future. I don't have a lot of insight there.
You just build the future time.
The predictions I make tend to be simple, linear ones, onwards and upwards. I really, it does really feel like this is going to become a major component, or has already become a major component of enterprise data processing, filling a really important gap that was basically left on the table. And I think the nature of the way the system is structured as open source, as a set of loosely coupled components, really gives it strength and allows it to evolve and adapt. And as you mentioned earlier, people can add value at the component-wise level. They don't have to own the whole stack. Nobody owns the whole stack. We all share it. So it sure looks to me, I'll hazard a prediction, like we're gonna continue to see this explosion. I think there's a long ways to go before there's anything close to saturation. I think there's a lot of immaturity in the technology still. Got a ways to go. It's very useful today, useful to lots of folks, but it could be made a lot more useful, have more use cases, and then there's a lot of folks who could be using it today who aren't yet. And you top that off with the hardware is going to keep getting cheaper, which is going to enable all sorts of uses that today we can't even imagine, that would seem ridiculous. I mean, the things that people are doing today with Hadoop seemed ridiculous to think about doing 5 years ago.
Or even 2 years ago.
Or even 2 years ago. Yeah. And so I think we're going to continue to be surprised by how this grows.
The only thing I'll add is I think in 5 years from now, we will see multiple multi-billion-dollar companies get created by entrepreneurs that we all love. I think we're going to see a tremendous amount of innovation and new companies that are got, and these are not
just internet companies, like
internet companies.
other industries.
Yeah, like you say that, right?
Yeah,
you will see multi-billion-dollar companies being created. So.
Like Twitter, the Twitters of the world.
Exactly.
Doug, so people want to know what you're working on, right? So we had Amr on, and he was talking about the thing going on with Hadoop, but he mentioned your project. Can you just share with us what you're working on right now? You're working on a pretty cool project that you're pretty pumped about.
Sure. I mean, people ask me what I do, and I kind of have 3 jobs. One of them is I go around and talk to folks like you guys. It seems to be a good demand for that. People want to hear about Hadoop, and I'm a decent spokesperson for it. I also spend a fair amount of time working with the Apache Software Foundation. I very much believe that they're a key to the success of this, and I'm currently serving as the chairman of the board of Apache, and that takes a certain amount of time to organize that and pay attention to that. Yep. But the software project I'm working on these days is a thing called Avro, trying to develop a data format that's language independent, but also really supports
documents.
Not so much documents as dynamic data types, so that if you've got some sort of query that's querying several complex data sets, and it's generating a new data set, you're defining data types on the fly. And the way that people tend to do this is not with big statically typed programming languages these days, but with lightweight scripting languages. A lot of times people are doing exploration. And we see more of that kind of stuff going forward. So we need to have tools to store that data efficiently. It makes a big difference if you can store it in half the size and process it twice as fast, just getting the data in and out. Yeah. That halves your hardware costs, which is 2 is still a big number. And so having a format and tools for reading and writing that really plays to this new world where we want to be able to dynamically handle complex data between lots of different programming languages and different systems. So an interchange format for the ecosystem. It's not super sexy, but that's okay. Yeah. I'm actually sort of happy to toil away in the back room on something that I think is important.
Yeah.
And
you have to keep current. You got to be coding.
Yeah.
You're not coding. You lose it. You gotta.
That's the paranoid fear. You never want to stop because then you might never come back.
Chairman of the board. I mean, you're the chairman of the board. Great title, but you could lose. You don't want to lose your edge.
Coding's not like riding a bike.
Yeah.
But the boring stuff is interesting as well.
I long ago thought I would have by now started being a manager or something like that, and not writing any code, and it hasn't happened. Hasn't happened yet. I don't know if there's fun in it or not. For whatever reason, whether I'm obviously incompetent at those kind of things, and they just kept me.
Or is that self-selected incompetence?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I'm really bad at spreadsheets.
But I'm happy. But there's also, personally, I get a feeling of satisfaction writing code that nothing else quite gives me. That I feel like I've actually done some real work. And if I run a meeting, it's good. It's good. Somebody needed to do it, and I don't mind it. but it doesn't have that same feeling of productivity.
Yeah, well, obviously you're committed to as chairman of Apache because it's a really important organization for obvious reasons. What about the overall growth in contribution to Apache? We've heard companies like NetApp and EMC, the bigger guys are coming in. They're actually now contributing. So have you seen an explosion of contribution, new people coming in, contributing?
Oh, yeah.
What's the dynamics there? Can you share your insight there?
Definitely been an uptick. I mean, Apache, through the years, a lot of projects sort of have a life cycle where they're young, where there's that then become very active, and then a lot of times, some stay active for a long, long time, but a lot of times they get mature, and it sort of tapers off. So over time, there's always new people coming along in order to sort of maintain the foundation. But recently, in the last few years, we've definitely seen an uptick, and I've seen people speculate that Hadoop is a part of that, that it is the destination of choice for Hadoop ecosystem projects, and rightfully so, I think, and that this one project is really helping the ASF to grow. There's a lot of other ways that ASF's been growing recently. I mean, we just added OpenOffice, which is one of the biggest open source projects in the world, is now joining the ASF. So.
Awesome. Abhi, so your growth strategy, is there an open source component? Are you guys contributing back, and is that part of the play yet? Have you hired people? What's the funding status? Last time we saw you, you were being clutched and grabbed by VCs at Strata. You're very articulate. You have a good handle of the financial services. What's going on in your world?
A lot of progress. So as I've made it a habit of making all my big announcements with you guys. So we actually have a team. We have a great core team. We have 8 people. They've been with the company for a long time now. We released our private beta 2 months ago. Our GA comes out in a few weeks. We're very excited. We're working with 10 close customers in the FS space, so very excited about that. Have you raised money? No, we did the hard way the first 6 months.
Nice.
We raised a very small private round from Wall Street. The next 6 months, and the phone keeps ringing, and Cloudera doing what they did yesterday makes the phone keep ringing even louder. But I think that's a good problem for all of us to have.
Yeah.
But we're seeing tremendous traction in the
As
market.
I said to the last guys from Digital Reasoning, who I love, just love that company.
Agree.
Auction.
Hey, you guys should conduct it. You got the personalities for it. But I think it's all. So what we're seeing really is, because we've now built, and we call it the first analytical application, completely powered by Hadoop, that leverages the power of it, and because we've done a great job at building an ecosystem of partners, advisors, everybody from BlackRock to McKinsey to Cloudera and Hortonworks as they come to the market, we see the education part is over, guys. Man, this is now time. This time next year, when you and I are sitting here, we need to have customers sitting here and telling you the story about how they use Tresata and Cloudera, right, together to solve problems that they haven't been able to solve before and reshape the financial industry.
It's really, I got to say, on a personal note, it's been really fun. For all of us, we're growing. It's a thermal that's pulling us up. You're the spokesperson. You have a handler, Doug. When you see people with handles, oh boy, he's and you're coding still.
How can I get to be your handler? I would love to be your handler.
He's got a handler. You're now an entrepreneur. You're growing. Cube is growing. We're growing. And we've been part of a really great movement, and being exposed to Hadoop only, I believe, is yielding good things. It's a great market, great people involved. Thank you for your support.
Absolutely.
You guys
and
are
yours.
great. Thanks for coming on theCUBE again. CUBE alumni
Great
many
to see you
times.
guys, as always.
Thanks so much, guys.
Thanks for having us very much.
Really appreciate it, and congratulations. You guys are heroes, man. We love
Thank
you.
you.
So.
Doug, always good to see you, my friend. Thanks a lot.
Abhi,
Okay.
John,
I'm going to get all teary-eyed here. You guys are amazing. Okay.
Great.
Thank you very much.